Hadden has done several stories from Cuba. He sat down recently with my colleague Elaine Reyes. Gerry talked about the changes he's seeing there and what the future holds.
So, Gerry, what were your biggest takeaways from your first trip to Cuba several years ago to what you saw and experienced this time around? What struck you the most?
Right. My last trip to Cuba was in 2003 with NPR when I was based out of Mexico. So I hadn't been back in 11 years. And probably the biggest change you notice right away, for example, is this growing middle class. Very small, but the Cubans have money. You see it in businesses. You see packed restaurants filled with Cubans. When I used to go, the few restaurants that existed were filled with tourists. And you go into the hotel lobbies. We didn't stay in a hotel on this trip. We stayed at a friend's house. But to get internet, the only place you can get it in Cuba still are in the hotels. So we'd pop in there once in a while to try to check our emails and so forth. And amazingly, the lobbies were packed with Cubans. And it costs $5 or $6 or $7 an hour to get online. So they've got money, clearly, to get online. And that's a huge change.
What is the general sense among Cubans about what's taking place with the United States? Is there any apprehension at all of things changing too quickly, or are they generally happy about what's happening right now in their country?
I think they're nearly unanimously applauding. Everyone is so excited for a thaw in relations, even if it takes a long time. You know, this is the beginning of a long process, but they're very enthusiastic about it. I mean, you know, the Cubans have been against the embargo as a country since the very beginning, obviously, because it's hurt the country so much. So any trepidation about it, I didn't get the sense that anyone was particularly feared cultural invasion from the United States, for example, or something. You know, Cuban culture is very strong, and I don't think it will be diluted, and I don't think Cubans have that fear either.
What do you think the biggest challenges will be going forward, though?
Well, for Cuba, it's this balancing act between you know, a one-party state that wants to retain complete control of the country, but it wants to also open up an economic space and give people enough economic freedom so they can start earning money, because Cubans and the Cuban government, through taxes, desperately need that money. So how do you maintain that balance between political control and economic freedom? And I think that is going to be a challenge every step of the way.
All right, Gerry Hadden, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.